Hello all, and welcome back to the ASMR Critique. My name is Joseph, and I apologize for the mic quality in this video, as I am on a job site, and I'm just trying to get this out as quick as possible. So, just last night, I saw the Super Mario Bros. Movie at midnight, and I'd like to offer my day one off-the-cuff initial impressions. I wrote most of this down last night just because I wanted to strike while the iron is hot and get as many of my first impressions down. I'm also not super organized if I just ramble on, so I wanted to sort of have some structure to what I'm saying. So forgive me if I'm, obviously reading. So, first off, how was the film? As a lifelong fan, I have to say I absolutely loved it. Full stop. If you take away one thing from this video, it's that if you are a Nintendo nerd, this film was straight up anime. And I mean that in the best way possible. As in, there are moments where I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo had planned out certain shots for Illumination, whether in manga or previs form. There's a distinctly Japanese feel to some of the mise-en-scène, and some of the way the character interactions play out. Overall, the film was definitely worth the long wait, as it surpassed my expectations, which were pretty high following the trailers, and left me wanting a longer cut. Hopefully we'll get some cutscenes or a longer version on home video, as the film is barely 90 minutes and it just flies by. It is such a fast-paced film. It's a real whirlwind, and the way this universe was handled meant a lot to me as a lifelong fan, just personally. I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, but let's get into the plot. I mean, it's pretty basic. Let's make no mistake, this is a simple archetypal story. But despite the short runtime, the characters are treated well, both as individuals and with respect to the original game counterparts. If you want to nitpick, you can say that the story beats are often sketched broadly. The intricacies of world building are largely glossed over, and the story unfolds at a breakneck pace. In most films, that might be a problem, but given that the Mario universe is already well established for the initiated, I don't see these as negatives. It's no secret that the two brothers get split up around the 20-minute mark or so, but I love how they both stay strong and level-headed throughout the experience. And I also love that Mario is heroic and seeks to do the right thing, even from the very start. The other unique aspect of this film is that, to me, it almost creates a new subgenre in the already small subgenre of feature film video game adaptations. To be more precise, this film's DNA is a perfect blend of the mediums of film and video games. What I mean is this Nintendo Illumination collaboration has formed a movie that feels like a highlight reel of epic video game moments that take the viewer on a 90-minute theme park thrill ride, which, I mean, they just opened the Nintendo theme park, so it ties in pretty perfectly there. As such, I'll be judging this film by what it's trying to accomplish and how well I feel it achieves those goals. While some of the humor is silly or broad, the movie has a heart at its center, and the set pieces here will put a smile on any fan's face. If you're cynical, you'll say this is corporate product, but even if it is, it's product with a soul, because it's trying its absolute best to deliver feel-good entertainment to the fans and to build upon the elements of the Mario games without taking itself too seriously and ruining the magic. It's a fine line to walk, both tonally and in terms of world building. You wonder at things that are hinted at, and how they might be fleshed out in a sequel, and as to that end, I was definitely left wanting a little more. Then again, I'm a sucker for world building. I'm a fantasy author. I just love that stuff. I think they have a pretty good amount. When I say wanting more, what I mean is there's a lot that they can build upon in this film. Everything that's established serves the purposes of the narrative perfectly. But, of course you're going to be left wanting some questions. This is the Mario universe. If we're going to take the words of Mr. Miyamoto himself in the Game Informer interview where he talks about how The Mario characters are all kind of like thespians. They're a theater troupe playing roles, which is why they can like ride go-karts together one moment and play sports together the next moment. You know, he's sort of admitting that they kind of play fast and loose with the various elements of that world. But this movie tries to tie everything together. There's power-ups, warp pipes, basically like pipes that connect different realms. And they never really get into that too much as to like how that started. You know, maybe for a future film, we'll start to see just how things might have come to be. If Nintendo can maintain the freedom to do these films their own way, I am all for a Nintendo cinematic universe. Because God knows it's time for Disney to pay the piper for their many, many sins against beloved franchises and characters. So, as for the Super Mario movie's low critic scores, I am honestly not surprised. Given that the entire Disney empire is falling apart, it's no surprise, just saying it, that their paid shills and bots and fanboys feel threatened by this film. With that said, it's not for everyone. It's true. If you don't know the difference between a blue shell and a green shell, you might not be its target audience. You might still have some fun with the sort of broader humor and the cute little moments, but it's really a film for the fans, the die-hard fans. In fact, the whole experience feels almost tailor-made for me. You know, I'm like its exact target audience, 35 male gamer. You know, I grew up on these games. These characters have the best versions of their iconic outfits, recreating and remixing great moments from the games. It's just extremely cathartic. It's more than member berries. It's a thrill ride that spans generations, the stuff of dreams. Seeing this in a theater was also a fun social experience. Even though it was a midnight showing, there were a lot of families, and everyone seemed to be having a blast. My theater even clapped at the end. See, many of us 30-something N64 kids, we don't have time to play games anymore. We have to live vicariously through experiences like the Super Mario Bros. Movie. On the flip side of that, in all honesty, yeah, I wouldn't blame anyone who's unfamiliar with this franchise for being overwhelmed. It's a lot of visual and auditory stimuli thrown at you in rapid succession. I can't even imagine this from the perspective of someone who doesn't know anything of the games. But then again, you know, there's some moments like when they're building their carts that they act almost as advertisements for the games, which, you know, someone who's never played Mario Kart might look at that and be like, hey, that looks pretty fun. I can, you know, choose my own loadout for my carts. And like some, you know, giant gorilla dude is gonna like use some levers and this contraption to make it happen. Anyway, to me, like trying to explain how carts are assembled and just showing this, you know, giant Kong garage where they build carts, that is awesome. That is great fan service. But, you know, your mileage will vary. As for the characters, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I enjoyed them all, except maybe Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong. He wasn't terrible, just not what I expected from a character who's supposed to be a grizzled old geezer. You know, you hear his little vocalizations in the DK games, and you're like, yeah, that's a different kind of voice that, you know, they should have probably been going for. I was super skeptical of Seth Rogen as DK, but he could have been worse. I didn't have any major problems with him, except maybe his laugh gets overused a bit. Jack Black was pitch perfect in more ways than one. And I liked how his Bowser is unstable, proud, and scary, but also goofy and lovesick. Just the one shot of him bobbing his head on his throne as his minions are rocking out, it conveys a lot of character. Just that conveys so much. He definitely has a thing for Peach, and the way the movie goes into that is got a lot of laughs from the audience. I don't want to say too much here. Some critics may find it old-fashioned, the fact that they're doing the whole love triangle kind of thing. I say those critics are all sound and fury, signifying nothing. They can shove it, because everything between Bowser, Peach, and Mario was perfect. I should disclose that I am a Princess Peach superfan. Playing as her for ungodly hours in Super Smash Bros. Has pretty much melted my mind. I'm okay with saying that, and now I literally collect her figures and merch. So, yeah. With that said, I have many thoughts on how they portrayed her character. There was some controversy before the film came out as to whether she was a little too much of a girl boss, and then there were some reports that Nintendo had pushed back actually against Illumination to try to keep her a little closer to her original character, whereas they tried to make her a little more of a girl boss. I think they struck a really good balance. Of course, given the waifu factor, maybe a tad biased, but I think that Shigeru Miyamoto, Chris Meledandri, the crew, and of course Anya Taylor-Joy did a great job of making Princess Peach capable and badass without being annoying. You could tell right away that Peach inspires Mario, and that makes all the difference. Mario and Peach's scenes are some of the best in the movie, and I love how they're always looking out for each other. It's a really cool relationship. I've always thought that Peach had the potential to be one of the best female characters of all time, and while this film does a great job at portraying Peach's warrior and leadership qualities well enough, they don't really explore her girly side, her sort of taste for the finer things in life, like tea and cake and whatnot. Instead, she's more mature. She's kind of like a go getter 20 something. She takes charge not for selfish or prideful reasons, but because she cares for her toads, which ties back beautifully into her backstory. Yes, I'm not going to spoil that because it's beautiful. Even though she's initially skeptical, Peach quickly warms to Mario once she realizes that he has a hero's heart and never quits, even when taking beatings from guys way bigger than himself. Now, before I move on to the brothers, let me just mention really quickly that the very first couple of scenes with Peach, they kind of lean into this sort of thing where she's like testing Mario a bit. Your mileage may vary with that. I wasn't the biggest fan of that, sort of like, oh, let's see what you can do kind of a thing. But thankfully, it doesn't last very long. Um, they could have used a couple alternate lines so that she's like a little less condescending towards Mario when she first meets him. But it's like, okay, they're trying to. I get it. They're trying to show that there's room to grow there, where she, just like everybody else who we've seen prior in the film, who's not as a part of Mario's family, which, by the way, I'll get into that. They always comment on how small he is. He's a short guy. What can he really accomplish being so short, It's kind of a sticking spot. So, as someone who's shorter than average height and an older brother, I'm about 5'8" and a half, 5'9". I immediately connected with Mario as his character is established quickly and effectively as someone who's smart, capable, and brave. By contrast, Luigi is still finding his footing in this movie, and sadly, he doesn't get much screen time. You do care about Luigi, though. You see how much he respects and admires Mario. I don't want to spoil too much, but I really enjoyed the chemistry between Chris Pratt and Charlie Day. Brotherly love, totally anime. Mario versus various bosses, also anime. Bosses, mini bosses. The fidelity to the characters in the world is phenomenal. There were so many incredible moments that just had me smiling. There were some action moments where I felt as if I was watching the most epic Mario speed run, or sort of like Naughty Dog like Mario cutscene. In fact, the animation is so good at some points, I have to wonder if they're going to be able to match it quality-wise in future projects. Real quick, I also love that Shigeru Miyamoto is the first credited creator, and the film does say it's authored by Nintendo at the end of the credits, so I really don't think it's a stretch to say that Nintendo creatively turbocharged this movie. They really um, put a lot of their input in here. There's just cool throwbacks to old Nintendo Easter eggs and Japanese pop culture. Bowser is first introduced like a kaiju. I mean, down to the shot composition and the music, and that there's just some really like cool stuff all throughout. To me, it seems like Nintendo paid the extra bucks to really get like that extra oomph out of the visuals. Now, for negatives, and there are a few negatives, you get the feeling that perhaps things were left on the cutting room floor, or that certain moments could have been rewritten. Things that should have been fleshed out maybe a little more, or could have been expanded upon. Maybe some lines that just seem a little redundant. Yeah, there's like isolated lines that make no sense, such as Peach early on telling a curious Toad that Mario is unimportant. They're about to go on a epic quest to save the land, right? And the Toads are like pointing at some of the Toads are pointing at Mario, like, who's that? You know, this guy she just trained. And she's like, he is unimportant, or something like that. And I'm like, at least introduce him as Mario. You know what I mean? I get that, they're trying to establish there's room to grow. This is Mario's origin story. He has to prove himself, yada, yada. Just could have been done a little bit better. It gives him a challenge to rise to, I get it, but the put down, a little unnecessary. There's also two jokes about things being adorable. Uh, it wasn't funny the first time to say, we're adorable, but, that's all right. Maybe the kids will like it. Not a fan. For the most part, the dialogue is fine, and I didn't really have a problem with the writing as much. This is a visual film. It's a kinetic visual film. It's driven by action, not by dialogue. And I don't know if I really covered this as much, but Peach does show her tender side. She does she and Mario will look at each other just to see if they're okay several times in the movie, and I thought that was just such a good touch, They're checking in on each other. I love it. The pacing's fast. It'll be too fast for some people, but to me that's just what you want in a high-energy film like this. Quick pace and the lack of downtime allowed the filmmakers to focus on visual storytelling, and that's going to help a lot with rewatchability. Now, for some light contextual spoilers, nothing major, Bowser has an amazing song. There's 2 post-credit scenes. There's also several 80s pop rock songs, which I was fine with as the series kicked off in 85. You'll probably recognize these songs. I liked them. I won't be going into heavy spoilers, but I'll try to answer any questions in the comments, I mean. So feel free to drop them below anytime. I'll try and get to that when I can. Anyway, time to wrap it up as I need to get back to work. My animals are over here getting some water. I absolutely love the film. Loved it. Full stop. Nothing's going to take that away, that first viewing experience. It's basically an action-adventure anime with beloved Mario characters, and for that I recommend it to anyone who's really enjoyed a Mario game. So a few last sort of off-the-cuff thoughts. I really liked how Mario and Luigi's family was portrayed. Maybe not too big of a spoiler because it happens right away. Mario and Luigi's dad is voiced by Charles Martinet, and their mom seems like a sweet individual too, so it was cool to see their family. Now, for some light contextual spoilers, nothing major, Bowser has an amazing song. There's 2 post-credit scenes. There's also several 80s pop rock songs, which I was fine with as the series kicked off in 85. So another thing I'd like to mention is the sort of archetypal nature of the story and how I enjoyed that in relation to how the characters are portrayed, especially in the sense that Mario and Luigi go on different journeys. Their paths diverge. And they kind of get what they need, as the Rolling Stone song goes. Can't always get what you want. Sometimes get what you need. Because Luigi, he is fearful. He lacks self-confidence, unsure of himself. The film kind of puts him through a different challenge than it does Mario. And I think one of the issues that people are going to have with this film is Luigi. As I mentioned, he doesn't get as much development or screen time. I will say the way that the brothers, I hope it's not a spoiler to say that the brothers reunite at the end of the film. How that was handled was really well done. It's so hard to not be spoilery. I'm sorry. I mean, this is a family-friendly film, but basically the brothers have different sets of challenges. You kind of have the, so-called alpha male of Mario going to take on this increasing level of physical and mental challenges, whereas Luigi, his challenges are more internal. He's got to face himself. So he's put through the whole, dry bones, dark world, Bowser dungeon sort of situation where it's like he has this brush with death You know, the little Luma keeps joking about death, and it's like internally, right? Luigi is forced to face his fears in this film, and it's kind of a subtle arc. You can blink and miss it, but I feel it was very intentional on the part of the storytellers. Luigi is confronting the idea of mortality because that's ultimately where his fear comes from. And Mario has to sort of overcome his, what's the right word? It's not quite a complex that he has. It's more of a this feeling that being short, he really can't accomplish things that other people can. And it's a little unsatisfying if you look at it as, well, the way to get around that is power-ups. But the power-ups are a part of the world. And Mario and Luigi are entering this world. And really what serves them is who they are, what they bring to the table to the Mushroom Kingdom. So I feel like it sets up sequels really well. Because here you have these two brothers who probably pretty competent plumbers, but they also have a lot to offer. Mario, as it's shown, he has a heart of gold. He wants to help people and do the right thing. They don't really dwell on that. You know, it's not a preachy movie that's trying to talk about justice and freedom or whatnot. But you see it through Mario's actions, how he stands up to Bowser. There's one moment towards the end of the film, perhaps now I'll get into a little bit of spoilers, where Mario is absolutely beat up. He has been knocked into everything. He's got a black eye. There's a moment where Bowser chases him into a diner, and he's just like, he has to take a moment, right? He's sitting there, and Mario just has to compose himself and just be like, he's facing something that he's never dealt with before. And just seeing him like rise to that challenge was crazy inspiring. Anybody who's dealt with difficult physical challenges, I mean, you know, the blue collar workers of the world. I mean, anyone who's pulled a 16-hour shift knows what I'm talking about. It's inspiring, okay? There's moments in this film that are genuinely inspiring. I don't want to be knocking the story. I think that they did a really good job. It's just that everything moves so quickly that if you blink, you'll miss some of the best moments in this film. I think the only people who might be a little bit disappointed in this film maybe are Luigi fans, and not because Luigi was not portrayed well, but just because he has a lot less screen time than Mario or Peach. Which, after hearing he was going to be kidnapped, I mean, it's kind of a given, but at the same time, it's a bit disappointing, given that the chemistry between the brothers is obviously so great. The characterizations between the brothers are great, and the performances of Chris Pratt and Charlie Day play off each other very well. Anyway, I can't wait for a sequel. I hope they crank these out pretty quickly. And I look forward to more entries in the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. One last thing. Peach has more outfits than you see in the trailers. Yes, there are a few other outfits. Not going to spoil them. Anyway, if you're a fan, what are you waiting for? Don't keep listening to me. Go get your butt out there and go see the Mario movie. It's worth it. Peace out. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry about the mic quality. I apologize. This was not a proper ASMR video, but I hope that it did give you a good idea of what to expect from the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Mamma mia, I forgot to give the movie a score. I forgot to mention Toad, who was awesome, and I also forgot that Peach never uses her parasol. No parasol? That's a 1 out of 10. Just kidding. I give the Super Mario Bros. Movie 7 out of 7 magic mushrooms. That's right. I love this movie.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It is my pleasure to make this video and to share my thoughts on the Super Mario Bros. Film. If you like the film, if you have any thoughts on it, feel free to comment below. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Leave me a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the ASMR Critique. Let's go!